Hello and welcome to another beautiful day in sunny South Wales. Nah, not quite. I guess the run had to end one of these days, but back to normal here in Port Talbot. Cloudy, cold, windy, but it's not tipping it down, so we'll take that. I'm incredibly pleased to say that my microphone survived 3 days in the cold and wet. I forgot about it and left it on a rock. And it's still working, which is great for the cheapest no-name nonsense brand microphone I could find on Amazon. Yeah, really pleased with that. It has surpassed any small expectations I had of it. So that's great. Anyway, so we're doing some broad beans today. We are growing the Sutton, which is a compact broad bean. Plants are ready to go out, looking pretty good. Some of them have been a little bit hit by the sun that we've had. In the polytunnel, it's been very hot in the polytunnel. So yeah, they're ready to go out anyway in this weather. It's perfect transplanting weather. Nice and cool. A little bit windy, not too bad. Overcast, perfect. Spot on for planting out. So let's get on. Okay, so broad beans. We are growing a variety of broad bean called the Sutton. These were planted about 3 weeks to a month ago, and since they've germinated, they've been in our polytunnel, getting regular water in. We put them in, as you can tell, we grow them in slightly bigger cells than our usual trays that we use, simply because a broad bean's a big seed, and you can jam it into those small cells. I guess you could probably do that. I've never done it because it just seems like too tight a fit, really. You know, it would be root bound almost from the get-go. So you want to be growing in a slightly bigger pot, ideally. We have these trays hanging around. They're rubbish. They're really thin. I don't know where I got them from. I think they came along with some plants we bought, and I kept them. They are rubbish, so we've had to double up, triple up, stop them from falling apart. And they've still, as you can tell, you can see they're just dying to break. They've still broken a few times, and I've ended up cleaning up semi-germinated, semi-grown, young broad bean plants from the floor. So whatever these trays are, I wouldn't recommend. That cheap, crinkly plastic, no good. Invest in good trays, in good pots, and keep them for a long time is definitely my advice. We got enough waste plastic going around at the minute to be using rubbish trays like this. Now that I've got them and they're the right size, I kind of I'm reticent to just chuck them away because it feels like, leaning into the sort of frivolous waste problem even more heavily. So I'm trapped with them like some sort of curse, I guess. Anyway, that's enough about the stupid pots. So you want to use bigger pots for the broad beans. It saves you transplanting them as well. They're in these until they're ready to go to the ground, which is ideal. So this variety that we're using, the we're growing, this variety that we're growing is called the Sutton. It's a compact broad bean, only grows to about 40 to 50 centimeters tall, thereabouts, which is ideal for us because we're in quite a exposed site. We get a lot of wind coming across here. So when I am looking at things like peas, broad beans, climbing plants, which like to get high and wide, and on a site like this become like a wind sail on a bad day, I look for compact varieties. We've grown the Sutton. We grew it last year and it did really well in our garden, which is a little bit less exposed than this, but still pretty windy at times, and it did great. So got high hopes for this. Anyway, now there's a few different ways you can go about planting it. Depends on how you want to support the plants. The nice thing with the Sutton is you don't necessarily have to go to the same lengths to support them as larger plants. A lot of broad beans will sometimes require individual stakes, much more heavy duty support, especially as they get heavier and they start fruiting. With the Sutton, you can generally, especially in more sheltered sites, sheltered conditions, go without a stake. We will be staking them because, as I say, we get a lot of wind across here, but we won't have to do anything particularly heavy duty, just bamboo canes and some string basically to keep them roughly as we want them, neat and tidy. Anyway, for us, we grow them in double rows, about 9 inches between the rows. For me, that's just a little bit over that, about there to there, for 9 inches, around about that. Now, our bed is a little bit smaller. It's a little bit of an awkward one, this. This is me not being exact with my measurements, coming to bite me in the backside, because our slightly wider beds there, I just did them with it was a pace, trying to do about 1.2 meters basically. Obviously I was pacing a little bit more conservatively on this day than when I laid those ones, which was a little bit of a more ambitious pace. Anyway, long story short, so this bed is a little bit thinner. It's too wide to justify growing just one row of broad beans. But it's just a little thinner, a little narrower rather, I should say, than I would like to grow 2 double rows. And that's what we're going to do. So when you're laying out broad bean rows, you want about 9 inches between, within your rows, within your double rows. And then about 2 feet between the double rows themselves. So for us, if I go right to the edge here, do that. I know my welly boots on. So yes, we're a little bit tighter than we'd like to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal 1 inch from within the rows. And we're going to go for more like 8 inches, I reckon, within the double row. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. And whatever is in between is in between. A little bit more, there we are. And that'll be fine. As I said, ideally we'd have a couple more inches between the double rows and maybe another inch of space within, but hey ho, what can you do? So, standard stuff applies. It's nice. Whoops. See how rubbish these things are. It just fell apart as I was lifting it. I don't know. Maybe I will get rid this year. The nice thing about growing things in larger pots like this is that you have to be quite so delicate when you're removing them and transplanting. So as you can see, nice root development. Maybe because of the shape, very easy to just settle it into the soil. On to the next one. You can see my water butters run dry, unfortunately. So I haven't actually watered these before transplanting, which is a bit of a no-no. Ideally you want to be watering them so the soil doesn't fall apart, as you're seeing when I'm transplanting these. Yeah, it's around about 8 inches, I think. That'll be fine. But my water butters run dry because we haven't had any substantial rain, and I used what water we did have on the garden yesterday, and I haven't got the hose over to refill it. I'll have to do that later, but again, it'll be fine. So I guess this is a bit of a do as I say and not as I do video. Ideally you want to give the plants a little bit more space than what I'm giving them. Ideally you want to water them before you transplant them. So yeah, maybe ideally you want to watch a video of someone else planting broad beans. I don't know. We'll come back and see how they do this year. I'm sure they'll be fine. Another thing with this potting mix, I think I used a little bit too much vermiculite because I've had trouble in the past, especially when we've kept trays outdoors. Oh, it's just started to rain. Lovely, ideal. When we've kept trays outdoors, I've had a little bit of trouble in the past of them not draining well enough, and having troubles with rot. Basically, get seedlings rotting before they're strong enough to use up the water. You get mold and fungal issues. So I erred on the side of a little bit more vermiculite in these seedling mixes, but then ended up getting the polytunnel up, which was not something I'm sure I was going to be able to do this year. And therefore they've been kept in a slightly drier environment than I often have in the past. So that's the Sutton broad bean. My microphone's died. I'm not sure if it's a result of the rain or if it's just run out of charge. You'll have to wait and see. So I'm stooping right close to the phone here in hopes that the audio quality isn't too bad. In fact, it's just that's that. So we've planted them out. As I say, really nice broad bean in Sutton. I would highly recommend it if you are after a smaller plant for whatever reason, exposed site or smaller area, whatever it might be. Well worth a go. We'll see how this goes. It is a bit tighter than I'd hoped, even when I was sort of quite optimistically laying it out at the start of the video. I was expecting to have a bit more than what's that? Maybe 10, 11 inches between the rows. That is tight. That is tight. Ideally you'd have, pretty much double that, So we've ended up with almost a uniform, 8 to 10 inches between each plant. We're going to see how that goes. It's a little bit of an experiment. This is tighter than I've done in the past and tighter than I'd recommend. But hey, it's all a bit of fun in it. Let's see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm going to come back in a couple of weeks' time and get some supports in for this. As I say, it's not particularly urgent, but they do grow pretty quickly once the warmer weather sets in. We're expecting it to be about really high, 40-50 centimetres eventually. So we'll get a little support around them just to stop the wind from buffeting them too much, damaging the plants. And that's that. Really nice productive plant. Great for an exposed site, great if you're after a smaller broad bean for whatever reason. Not in need of too much support. So, rest of the day for me is to carry on with planting. Not quite sure what's next, and to get the insect netting out. It's a job I have put off, but I really need to get done now to get the insect planting to protect these kale and our Tokyo Cross turnips. We need to get that done. So, there's a couple of hours. Thanks for watching. Hope it was interesting, and see you again.